It was a beautiful summer evening. The hot day was gradually giving way to a cool evening as the sun slowly lowered to the treetops, painting the sky a warm golden-orange color. A light breeze carried sweet floral scents mingling with the smell of grass and earth. Alicia walked leisurely along the deserted highway, enjoying the peace and quiet that was rare these days. She was tired after a long shift at work, and now she was blissfully breathing in the fresh evening air, relaxing her tense muscles. This measured walk was like a balm to her soul after the hustle and bustle. But briefly there was a blessed silence. From behind came the growing noise of an approaching car, and then the squeal of brakes. A man smiling had peered out of the open car window and said, "Hey, beautiful. Wanna go for a ride? I'll pay." Alicia only quickened her step, trying not to pay attention to the intrusive solicitation. But the car kept following. The driver didn't stop. With a figure like that, it's stupid to walk. "Come on, stop." The man continued. Alicia, irritated by the stranger's insistence, stopped abruptly. How many times had she heard such things in her life? She turned to face the car, glanced at the man's face, which was spreading into a wide smile, and resolutely pulled down the wide-brimmed straw hat that covered her face securely. The driver froze for a moment, his eyes rounded, and then, with fear in his eyes, stepped on the gas, and the car disappeared in a cloud of dust. Alicia's mother abandoned her at the maternity hospital. A 20-year-old unmarried woman was afraid to show her newborn baby right away, and it was brought only on the second day. At the sight of the child, the mother was hysterical. One half of the girl's face was absolutely normal, but most of the other side was occupied by a dark, ugly birthmark. This cruel gift of fate immediately deprived Alicia of any chance of attractiveness and acceptance by others. At school, even the rudest and most ill-mannered children did not dare to tease the girl because of this peculiarity. People on the street, seeing her face, hurried to turn away or look away, and children froze with open mouths, not daring to ask what it is. Since childhood, Alicia felt like a monster, an outcast, rejected by society. Later, it became clear that fate had not just laughed at Alicia's appearance, it had also decided to mock her. By the time she was 14, Alicia had become a real beauty with a perfect figure that made men's hearts beat faster and their minds work slower. In addition, and the half of her face that was without a spot was not just cute, but perfectly chiseled and perfect. Without seeing her face, men were constantly falling for Alicia's figure. They tried to ask her out on dates, made enthusiastic jokes, whistled admiringly in the trail, braked near her with squealing their vehicles, and just did not give passage until they saw her face. This is a beauty with a flaw that crossed out any hopes for happiness. As a teenager, Alicia purposely hid her appearance, wore baggy, stretchy clothes, covered herself with huge scarves and glasses with disproportionately large dragonfly lenses. She tried her best to avoid unnecessary attention to her face. But becoming older, the girl decided that she would dress as she liked. After all, if she refused to do so, then what would be left in her life even a little bit pleasant? Interacting with people had always been difficult for Alicia. Over time, she had learned to accept their reactions, whether it was enthusiastic glances until they saw her face or stupor when they noticed a flaw. It was a constant test of strength, so the girl deliberately limited the circle of socialization, and those who wanted to be friends with her were not found. Alicia chose a profession where there was less interaction with people, but more communication with nature. She graduated from an agricultural college and got a job as an agronomist in a small town, where she worked with the selection of new plants, which she liked very much. Carefully placing the wide-brimmed hat back on her head and tidying up her disheveled hair, Alicia moved on. The fairy tale evening was no more. She had to walk another 2 kilometers to the house. The girl resolutely turned off the highway, climbed over a metal fence, and followed a barely visible path down to a small lake. The highway turned sharply at this point, and right below, almost at the very edge of the road, was a forest lake with a slight marshy tinge. Here, behind the trees, was her favorite secluded spot where Alicia often came to be quiet and alone. Today, though, she had planned to just do some household chores. It was cool near the water. The lake always remained cool because of the numerous springs that fed it. Even on the hottest days in July, there were few people who wanted to swim there. Alicia took a handful of small stones, settled on a fallen trunk, and began to throw them one by one into the calm surface. Time seemed to slow down in this place, suspended in the windless silence. But suddenly this peaceful picture was broken by a loud crack, and the next few seconds were literally etched in Alicia's memory. A black Jeep at breakneck speed broke through the highway fence and crashed into the lake right in front of the girl, only 20 meters from where she was sitting. The massive car hovered on the surface for a split second, and then slowly began to sink into the water. There was no time to think. Alicia rushed along the shore, closer to where she'd fallen, and then, without undressing, taking off only her sneakers, jumped into the water and swam to the car. She wasn't the best swimmer, but she didn't even think about that at that moment. There was no time to think. Alicia ran down the beach, kicked off her sneakers, and jumped into the water without undressing. Although she was not the strongest swimmer, it didn't matter now. There were 2 people in the car. The driver was unconscious, lying on the steering wheel and not moving, and a girl about 8 or 9 years old in the back seat who was desperately pounding on the glass in a panic. Alicia realized that they had critically little time. The car would go underwater in a few minutes. She started banging on the window, trying to get the girl's attention and signaling her to unbuckle the driver's seat belt. Fortunately, the girl immediately understood and did as Alicia showed her. Now Alicia indicated to open the window, but the girl desperately shook her head, pointing at the unconscious driver. But Alicia didn't give up. She showed again that she had to open the window. The girl obediently climbed to the first row of seats and piled on top of the unconscious driver, gesturing to the buttons on the door. The water had already come up to the windows of the car. Choking and spitting, Alicia nodded her head, shouted desperately, "Push it." The girl pressed the button, and the window began to lower slowly. Water rushed into the car. Alicia floundered desperately, trying to stay on the surface of the water, and reached out her hands to the girl. Grabbing her, she pulled the girl out, shook her, and pushed her towards the shore with a command, "Swim." The girl, splashing and raising water spray, began to swim. Alicia nudged her from behind, and after a few seconds, feeling solid ground under her feet, pulled the girl to shore. Alicia turned back to the lake and saw that the car was no longer on the surface. Alicia groaned in despair, realizing that she would not be able to get the driver out on her own. Looking back at the girl frozen in terror, she resolutely threw herself back into the water. She dived several times to no avail, but diving once more, she found the car. Luckily, the lake was quite shallow at this point. The young woman tried to open the door but failed. Then she struggled to pull the driver out through the window. At some point, Alicia was completely exhausted and lost consciousness. The first time Alicia woke up on the shore, when she was barely revived and forced to cough water out of her lungs. The second time she woke up was in hospital, a few days later, after struggling with pneumonia and fever, accompanied by delirium and nightmares. Alicia woke up to the sweet scent of flowers. She lay with her eyes closed, enjoying the smells, feeling calm and peaceful. "There, I see you're awake. Come on, come back to us," came a voice. Alicia struggled to open her eyes and saw a smiling face with black stubble and black hair swathed in bandages. "Who are you?" she asked, blinking, trying to remember who was in front of her. But her memory refused to tell her. "I'm the one who's gonna owe you my whole life, and you are my most beautiful guardian angel." The man's words seemed strange to her. Should what? What angel? Don't you remember? He continued to smile, softer now. "You rescued my daughter from the water and tried to pull me out. And I weighed over 100 pounds and was almost unconscious. Remember?" Alicia remembered. Suddenly she was scared and cold, even shivering. "So it was you. But it's not like I couldn't save you. How could you? The men saw you diving and got there just in time. Pulled us both out. But without your bravery, things could have ended much worse. Thank you, our angel." "Please stop." Alicia closed her eyes and turned away. She felt awkward around this smiling stranger. He didn't seem to notice her awkwardness and continued, "You're a real hero. You know, I fell asleep at the wheel. My daughter and I were driving to my parents' house. We hadn't been there in a while. I wanted to get there faster, so I figured I'd sleep when I got there. When we went off the highway, I hit my head hard." He rubbed the bandage on his head. "Nearly killed myself and nearly killed my daughter Katie. Without you, it would have ended badly. It's good that you were saved. Your daughter is a good girl. She didn't panic and she did the right thing." "Yes, she's a good girl." His face broke into a smile. "She be here soon. She's a good girl. See how many flowers she brought you?" He nodded in the direction where the flowers stood. "Do you like them?" "Very." Alicia smiled. "Very beautiful." "Beautiful flowers for a beautiful woman." "You again." Alicia blushed. "Come on." She wanted to fall through the ground. She pulled the sheet over her face and begged, "Leave me alone, please." "Alicia, don't take offense at me." His voice sounded soft. "I'm not deceiving you. You really do have perfect facial features. When people go to a plastic surgeon, they often ask to have their appearance modeled. Now, your face can be used as a reference. Trust a professional. I'm an oral and maxillofacial surgeon. I know what I'm talking about. I also know that we can fix your condition." He gently pulled the sheet away from her face. "Unfortunately, it won't be quick. It won't be painful, but we'll do it." Alicia looked at him warily, trying to pull the sheet back up again. But the man did not allow it and, moreover, turned her face slightly towards the light and, scrutinizing it, said, "I've done a lot of surgery, but for the first time in my practice, I'm going to tell you that I like you as you are now, but I want you to like yourself. This is important. It's very expensive." Alicia swallowed the lump in her throat. "I'll never be able to pay for such an operation. Don't you think," he continued to examine her face, "that you'd already paid for the operation when you rushed to save us in the freezing water?" He lifted her chin and looked into her eyes. "I promise you that everything will be okay." Do you understand? Alicia nodded. Somehow, for the first time in her life, she really believed that everything was going to be all right now. The man removed his hand and took a step back, allowing her to close her eyes again and come to her senses a little. He continued to speak, his voice softer and calmer. You have no idea how much what you did means to me. You saved not only my life, but my daughter's life. Keisha and I will never forget. Thank you, she whispered faintly. I'm glad I could help. A few minutes later, a girl with long brown hair and bright blue eyes entered the room. She smiled at Alicia and came closer. Hello, she said. My name is Katie. I'm so glad you've come to your senses. Daddy and I have waited so long for this moment. Hi, Katie, she replied, smiling back. It's good to see you. Katie sat on the edge of the bed and took Alicia's hand. You know, she said, I'll always be grateful for what you did. Alicia felt her eyes fill with tears. Thank you, Katie, she whispered, squeezing the girl's hand. I'm glad everything ended well. A man with black stubble stepped closer and put his arm around his daughter's shoulders. We're a family now, he said, looking at Alicia, and we'll always be there to support you. Alicia felt her heart fill with warmth and joy. She knew that now she had people who would always be there for her, no matter what the circumstances.